early in the morning, the women took the spices they had prepared and went to the tomb. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they entered, they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. While they were wondering about this, suddenly 2 men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood beside them. In their fright, the women bowed down with their faces to the ground. But the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, he has risen. Remember how he told you, while he was still with you in Galilee. The Son of Man must be delivered over to the hands of sinners, be crucified, and on the third day be raised again." Then they remembered his words. When they came back from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11 and to all the others. It was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the others with them who told this to the apostles. But they did not believe the women, because their words seemed to them like nonsense. Peter, however, got up and ran to the tomb. Bending over, he saw the strips of linen lying by themselves, and he went away, wondering to himself what had happened. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
He is risen.
He is risen indeed.
He is risen.
He is risen indeed.
He is risen.
He is risen indeed.
Hallelujah. I only get to do that once a year. I wish I could do that every Sunday. Oh, yes, I do. That would be good.
Okay, that's okay. Sorry, I apologize.
Okay. Here we are in Luke's Gospel. I wonder if you can put yourself into that morning. Luke tells of a brand new week. The week before had been an incredible week. It had started with a triumphant entry. The crowd had gathered. Jesus had entered Jerusalem on a donkey. And they were singing, "Hosanna! Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord." During the week, Jesus had gone into the temple area. He saw the money changers. He saw the livestock for sale. He saw this happening in the court of the Gentiles. And he said, no. He made a whip out of cords. And he drove the animals out. And he turned up the table. And they were frightened. They were fearful. They would not break lest there be a riot. And day by day he went to the temple. And he sat there teaching. The Pharisees and the scribes and the Sadducees, they would come and they would challenge him. And each time they would walk away with egg on their face. For he had the answer to the questions they were asking. They would bring him a coin and say, "Should we pay taxes to Caesar?" thinking they would trap him. And he says, "Give me a look at that coin. Whose image is on it?" And they said, "Caesar's." He said, "Well, give Caesar what belongs to him, and give God what belongs to him."
Amen.
He went on. He had a meal. And he was arrested. And they took him away. They had a kangaroo court, very illegal. But that's a story for another day. They handed him over to the Romans. And he was beaten. Hung up like a common criminal to die. And then after he breathed his last breath, they took him and they laid him in the rich man's grave. The next day was the Sabbath. It was a day of rest. And I imagine it was the most restless day of rest that anyone had had. As they were there, knowing they could not do anything, knowing they could not prepare anything, not able to process what had gone on. Finally, the sun sets and the week is ended. And busily they start preparing, as it is the new day, the new week. The ointments, the balms, the oils they would need to finish the job of embalming. And in the morning they would rise and go to the tomb. I don't think sleep came easily that night, for it was still dark and they were up. They couldn't sleep. They made their way to the tomb, not thinking straight, not realising they would need the men to roll away the stone. And as they got there, they're thinking, oh, what are we going to do? There's going to be that great stone there. How are we going to move it away? Matthew tells us these things. The soldiers that were guarding had fainted in fear, and an angel appeared and rolled the stone away. As they entered the tomb, they discovered it empty. And they stood there perplexed, it says. Meaning they didn't know what to do. We've all been there. In our darkest hour, suddenly things that couldn't be worse all of a sudden seem incredibly worse. And we're frozen. We're frozen in indecision. We're frozen in panic. We're frozen. What do we do? How do we do this? How do we fix this? They're there. The body of Jesus is gone. Where do we look for him? How are we going to embalm him? What do we do? And in the midst of their turmoil, they discover, they become aware that they are not alone in that tomb. For there are two men there. Not ordinary. They must be angels. Their garments are shining like the stars of heaven. And they panic. They fall to their knees. They throw their faces towards the ground. They want to say something, but there are no words that come out. And the angel speaks. He says, "Why do you seek the living amongst the dead? He is not here, for he is risen." For he is risen. For he is risen. Hallelujah. And then he goes on and says, "Do you not remember? Think back to when you were in Galilee. The things that Jesus told you. How he would go to Jerusalem. And where did he go? He went to Jerusalem. And he would be betrayed and handed over to the chief priests and the religious leaders. And there, they would crucify him. And he would be buried. And on the third day, he would rise again. And they remembered, oh yeah, he did say that, didn't he? He really meant it. Oh, okay, the penny started to drop. And I can't say as I blame them, because I think if I'd have been there that day, I would have been just as dumbfounded. I would have been just as bewildered. I would have been, I know he was saying that, but wasn't he speaking metaphorically? Isn't this part of what religion is? Yes, the body dies, but the spirit goes on, and, No. He conquered death. He defeated the grave. He rose from the dead. He is risen. I love the opening statement. Why do you seek the living among the dead? And it is a question that each of us need to be asked ourselves. Are we looking for the living amongst the dead? Perhaps we try to find our faith in the opinions of others. And those others are lost and going nowhere, and yet they are so quick to give opinions. That doesn't happen, does it? What is it we say? Where 3 or 4 are gathered, there are 5 or 6 opinions. It happens. And we are surrounded by people who are spiritually dead, who give us answers for everything. We think, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Oh yeah, that... No, it's not. We seek the living with the living. Do not look for him in the wisdom of this world. Do not look for him in the writings of those who have lived and died. Do not look for him in philosophy. And sadly, I would even say often theology. For he is not there. He is risen. Some people will look for him in religious ceremonies. And I'm not sure that he's there either. Do not look for the living in the dust of death, for he is risen. Before he went, he promised with his Holy Spirit that he would be with each of us every day. For he said, a little while later than this, but he said, and it is in our Bibles, go to the ends of the world, and lo, I am with you until the end of the age. He promised his Holy Spirit. He promised his presence. And he promised that he would be with us. That day of resurrection, he was not in the tomb, but he was on a road walking with travellers. That day of resurrection, he was not in a tomb, but he was in an upper room with a group of believers. In the weeks that followed, he was not in a tomb, but he was at a beach near Galilee, interacting with a boat full of fishermen, saying, cast your net in and see what you draw. Jesus doesn't meet us at the graveside. He meets us with our day. With each and every step, he is with us in the life. Where will Jesus be this week? I'll tell you where Jesus will be this week. He will be in some schools as some of our students go back to do their class studies, as some of our teachers go back. They will take Christ there with them. He will be in factories this week as forklifts break down and batteries have to be checked. He will be in shopping centres as people are pushing their carts through checkouts. He will be dinner tables, as families sit down together. He will be sitting in cars and trucks as Christians travel about. Jesus is with his people. He is not with the dead. He is living and he is with his people. This week, as you go about life, there you will see Jesus, because he is living and he is not dead. Guess what? If you want to find Jesus in this place, you're going to have to make sure at least someone is in this building. It is not this building that is the house of God, but it is the people that fill this building that makes this the house of God. For he said, where 2 or 3 are gathered, there I am in the midst of you. Christ is in this building today because you are in this building today. And without your presence here, Jesus would not bother coming. He is here because you are here. Do not seek the living amongst the dead, for he is risen. For he is risen.
Hallelujah.
For he